that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
He strikes it!
It's not just what he does with the football, it's what he does with his boot.
It's great rugby league, the man AJ Brimson.
Just let him grow into a footballer and he's going to be a star.
It's been pitched by Ben Hunt. Go Dozer! Ben Hunt wins the Origin for Queensland.
Well, thanks for joining us again this week on Queensland. And boys, what a week it was. Not one, but 2 State of Origin victories. How good was that as a Queenslander?
Yeah, it was a good week. And then you throw in the Broncos and your Cowboys.
And Cowboys back, baby. Genuine premiership contenders, towed up the storm. What more do you want?
So, good week to be a Queenslander, that's for sure.
Yeah, and typical Queenslanders, there hasn't been a lot of boasting, bragging going on until now, and it was a wonderful performance. But I'm sure that everybody in the team, whilst they were celebrating all night long, they know that they're going to face a task that's enormous in Game 2. New South Wales will be desperate to keep the series alive.
And how proud are you of the women, what they did in Sydney too? Well, I know your daughter's played with a lot of the girls in the Queensland team. How good was that to see?
Yeah, fantastic. It was a real display from the girls. I thought it was one of the best, finest team efforts that you'll see. Certainly there was some wonderful individual performances on show in the game, but the way that they managed to employ a clever kick and chase game and display a good all-round performance, that they shared the workload. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was good to see Ali Brigginshaw mix it up, play a bit of lock too.
Yeah,
said her body was really sore having to make so many tackles.
Yeah, and I'd been listening to plenty of people, sort of saying, "Oh, Ali's she's past her best." Well, she's past it, and she's gone round again and decided to take it on. So, wonderful performance. That was leadership on display.
And Tamika Upton, very good too. Taryn Aiken, Game 2 up in Townsville, Lockie. How good will that be?
Yeah, with the girls, so it's only it's a 2-game series, so for and against is obviously very important. Well, if we win the game, then for and against means nothing. But I think that was a record for an interstate match for the women down at Parramatta at Combank there. So I reckon Townsville will do their best to eclipse that. So it was a good performance, as you said. While it was. They played tough. They played with... Because the conditions weren't perfect. It was a little bit greasy there, so it was a bit of drop ball. And New South Wales were chock full of stars, so they've had that's a good win.
Yeah, and I was listening to a lot of the criticism at the end of the game from New South Wales names, and they were saying that one tackle, basically, that got rid of arguably their best player from a Queenslander. That was the thing that decided the game. Well, I don't think it decided the game, and admittedly it was a little bit high, but tackles like that occur in every game of footy, and if you're going to use one tackle as an excuse for a loss, well, you're going to be whinging for a long time to yourself and a group of people that don't want to listen. Yeah,
I feel your pain, Isabel. I hope you recover well.
Yeah, as a fellow throat injury victim. Lots of injuries over the weekend. Regarding Origin players, is that just a coincidence or bad luck, or what do you put that down to?
Well, look, we played in Adelaide, maybe a bit of travel, backing up. I mean, if you look at it, we look at someone like Nathan Cleary. He's backed up 5 days after a game, so
Sunday,
that's no different to
a week almost.
So look, I think it's just a coincidence. It's just some of these guys that are playing at that level, at a high level week in, week out. You throw in a midweek game for them, and look, I think it's a bit of a coincidence. But if you were to see it again after Game 2 and Game 3, then you might have to start questioning it.
Yeah, and the Jai Arrow one, that was just unlucky because that was a hip drop. It was nothing related.
Yeah, that's an impact or an accidental sort of injury, whereas soft tissues are different. It's different again.
Yeah.
And so, do you think we can manage Origin better? Like, do we look at playing it at the end of the year? Do we look at having a bigger break the mid-year for Origin, or the way it is fine?
Look, I guess the clubs have a real right to say that it's a little bit unfair on them, and it could be better if it was played at the end of the year. I think that's occurred once.
Yeah, in the COVID year.
Yeah, in the COVID year, and they were 3 great games. But to me, I don't think it makes much difference when they play them. They're 3 wonderful games, 3 of the best games that you'll see, and certainly for the players, they'll find it very difficult to have them just 1 week apart. That's pretty tough. You can have players that are sidelined for a week quite commonly. At this stage, we've got these games that are a couple of weeks apart where you get the opportunity to be able to recover and play in an Origin match. So I guess that can only be decided by the clubs and the NRL who come up with a decision like that.
I think last year they tried to condense it a little bit. So they had game 1 and then they'd play game 2, 2.5 weeks, which was a Sunday.
Yeah.
And look, I think you'd say the ratings and everything that, if you look back historically, what works is where we're at now, and that's Wednesday, game 1, 3 weeks later, game 2, 3 weeks. And I think it's so popular where it is. It's the old saying, don't try and fix something that ain't broke. So I think where we are now, and that's why it's been so popular, is the fact that you get that. You get a 10-day camp, you get 3 weeks in between, so there's always a big build-up into each game, which I think helps the game, the Origin itself, the concept. I think coaches probably need to start, and I've always been an advocate, not when I played, but now as someone who's sat back and watched post-playing, is that I think clubs need to take a bit of a short-term pain look, and that is rest their Origin players a bit more through here for long-term gain. So essentially at the end of the season, those players will still be, quite fresh compared to if you play them. Might be different for a kid, someone like Reece Walsh who hasn't played a lot of football, he might be able to back up and, get to the back end of the year and not be, fatigued or playing with niggling injuries. But for guys that have played, for a number of years, I think it's prudent if you're a coach, to take some short-term pain, rest some of those experienced players, and then hope that they're fresh after the series.
Just how sore are you, Lockie, after you back up from a Wednesday night Origin?
I always found it wasn't. You got yourself mentally prepared for the fact that you had to back up. So you sort of use the adrenaline and you got yourself mentally ready for that. It was always after your club game. That's when you fell in a bit of a heap. So. A lot of clubs got a different approach on how much time they give their players off after they play for their club. So I don't know what the Broncos are doing this year, but everyone approaches it differently. But, for me, playing 2 games in 2 days at that level, I could get through those. It was just, by the time I got to Monday, if I had the weekend off, Monday I was physically and mentally fatigued,
And I also found, Lockie, that it had a little bit to do with the result of that Origin game too. Yeah. If you got beaten, you went into your club game thinking, oh boy, I've got to try and fix something here. We got beaten, we got loser's limp, I'm not feeling all that good. If you won the Origin match, you went in, you were 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You were racing around and wanting to retain the form that was on display. So sometimes it can be the result of the Origin that helps you with the inspiration for that club match.
And what about Queensland for game 2? There'll be 2 force changes. Jai Arrow out for about 6 weeks with his ankle injury, and Tom Qlder is about to undergo surgery on his shoulder that he dislocated in game 1. So they'll need 2 new forwards. Who potentially are we looking at?
Well, I mean, the obvious ones are Kaufusi, who there's a small risk there. I don't think he would have played a game by the time the team's picked. Nanai's back.
Yep.
Cowboys had a good win. Capewell.
Yep.
So there's a few there, but as I've always said, a lot can happen in a week in rugby league. So you just got to touch wood and hope for the best that all those guys are fit and healthy when it comes to selection.
Yeah, and Kaufusi they've all displayed wonderful form. Kaufusi in the big games, I've always enjoyed watching him play, and I'm not against the others, but certainly the selectors will be having a look at his worth. And in every previous performance for Queensland, I can't remember him not playing a great game. He's physical, he's confrontational, he's just the player that you love having in an Origin battle.
Yeah. I think what would give Billy a lot of confidence, because we are a bit light on with edge forwards. But if they're all fit and healthy, we'll have enough there. But the fact that Ruben Cotter went there and
got man of the match
and stayed there,
stayed the whole game
and did his job there on the edge. So he plays in the middle of the Cowboys. So to go to that role and be able to do it really well at that level, I think that gives Billy a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I was surprised there. I would have thought Jai Arrow would have come on and played on an edge, but you can't question him because it turned out perfectly right.
I would, without sort of being disrespectful to Jai, I think Ruben moves laterally a bit quicker,
Yeah. But Fatty wants Corey Horsburgh in the team too. I saw him in Adelaide. Is he a chance? He's right in the
well, he's the other guy, yeah. I mean, I sort of, not that I had clean forgotten about him. I'd probably think he's more in the middle.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Depends what they want to do with the bench now that Arrow's out.
Again, even though they've only got to play one more game, they've got to get through this week before the team gets picked. Just a lot can happen.
Do you think any other changes potentially to the Queensland team, or everyone deserves to be retained?
Yeah, well, there's that famous old saying, Adam, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And certainly Billy and the selectors will be in a fairly lengthy, productive discussion on things, and I'm sure that the professionalism of the modern day game is now that they are able to say that, it worked for game one, but, they've made a change or two to their side, and I think it might be best if we select these guys in there. So it's a professional decision that's about to come up. There could be a surprise or two, very much dependent on, the operation of New South Wales team and the health and well-being of the Queenslanders.
One thing we know for certain is New South Wales will have a new halfback. Nathan Cleary ruled out the remainder of the series with his hamstring strain. As a Queensland legend, who's the halfback you don't want New South Wales to pick in game two?
I'm not going to say that.
Don't give him an edge.
I think, Origin's obviously as big as it gets. If I looked at the list of players that are in contention there, one guy stands out that's played in multiple grand finals, won a grand final, played in a grand final at this ground, and that's Adam Reynolds.
Yep.
That was probably where, if I was, thinking that if I wanted to know that the person I put in that 7 jersey is ready and capable and knows what it's all about, then probably, from my perspective, it'd be Adam. Yeah,
I'd agree with you 101%, Lockie. His performances for the Broncos have been fantastic, and he'd probably see this as a game to go back to Suncorp, even though he's going to be on the enemy, and pull out the game of his life to upset the crowd, knowing that he'll have him back on board the next time he plays there for the Broncos. I think he's one of the guys that, especially with the experience that he boasts at the moment and the way that his form is so consistent, I think it'd be madness for New South Wales not to select him.
I think it'd confuse the crowd too, because there'll be a lot of Broncos supporters there. If he runs out in New South Wales jersey, part of them would be thinking, I can't boo the Broncos captain, but he's in the opposition, so...
So you think that Freddie just picks him just so he can make the crowd a little bit less effective?
Exactly. I think too, based on what you said too, he's not going to be overawed. It's a game you have to go up and win at Suncorp Stadium. Even if he loses, he's not going to carry that scars for the future.
Yeah, look, it's not a knock on the others. I just think, from a New South Wales perspective, it's one of the toughest assignments. Well, it is. It's the toughest assignment for them. Come to Suncorp and try and win. So, let's see which way they go. But I'd be surprised if they didn't go for someone they know is tried and proven. Not on this stage, but at that level.
Yeah, and to be honest, in a game of this importance, your number 7, your 6, 7, 9, 1, 6, 7, 9 are your key players. So to indicate that you're not going to be making any surprise announcements, I think would be the way that they will act, and I think it'll be just a common sense decision for them.
And I think like for like, I think he's the closest to Nathan Cleary we've got
in terms of game managers. Yeah. I'd go Reynolds and Cody Walker in the halves. Get the band back together from the Rabbitohs days. That could cause a few headaches for Queensland.
Instant teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's just keep throwing names up there and try and confuse
And get Damien Cook back as well. They need to get Damien Cook in the team, the Rabbitohs connection. Latrell will be there.
Well, he's the bloke that I couldn't believe missed out. Damien Cook, he's still, he's over the, he's past being a novice in rugby league, a very talented player, but I'm watching him play his club football. He hasn't lost a thing. He's a wonderful player, and he's one of those blokes that if I was in a side, he'd be one of the guys. The creativity that he plays every time he's got the ball in his hands often must cause a little bit of drama in the minds of the defenders. What's he going to do this time? Where's he going to go? And in Origin, we've seen him perform enormously well for New South Wales previously, and if he gets another chance, he wouldn't waste it.
Yeah, I was on the Gold Coast on Saturday watching Damien Cook and co carve up the Titans, so very much back up your point there, Wal. But Lockie, why is it so hard for New South Wales to win at Suncorp Stadium?
Oh, I got no doubt the crowd plays its part. Like I think the intimidation factor, I don't think that's much of an advantage for us, because I think they use that as motivation. But I just feel that and you would have gone through the same while when you played. Just sometimes the cheer of the crowd when you're down and out and you're fatigued, it just makes a difference. And I think I always remember running out there going, I just want to make 52,000 people happy, and I'll do what I have to do to make them happy. Yeah.
Lockie, I used to say to a lot of people, yeah, sure, the Lang Park or Suncorp crowd were fantastic in cheering us on and making sure that we were enjoying the success that was on display out in the field. But more so, it's how they got behind us when we were doing it tough, when we were really struggling. That's when they got behind, and you could just feel the goosebumps all over, and you felt that you had to reward the crowd for their wonderful support all the way through. And you knew that they'd already inspired you because you were thinking about it. Yeah. So if you could pass that on to the one player in your team, he'd basically, the snowball effect would come out, and it's worth its weight in gold, their support. They always have been wonderfully supportive, and always. They never turned on us. They were disappointed when we lost, but they were there to try and cheer us on to a better result the next time we played.
So talk us through, how did you get them to throw cans?
Well, I remember when I actually got put to the sin bin as well, there was two of us went to the sin bin, and I remember I was saying to Mick Stone, Mick, you're kidding, you're fair dinkum, you're kidding. You're not going to. I'm not going to get thrown to the sin bin. And he said, you're off. Away you go. And I turned around. I remember I just sort of shrugged the shoulders, and as I looked up to have one last whinge, the cans were starting to fly, and I thought, well, make the most of this. So I stood there and just had another, well, you can't be serious and do this, and the cans went on. So I went off, and who was it that got sent to the bin before me? There was
I can't remember.
One of my teammates went in. He said, "Did you get turfed as well?" I said, "Yeah, I got 5." I said, "But they're just starting to throw the cans. The fans have really got behind us." I said, "I think things may be looking rosy when we go back out there."
Yeah.
And it was good to be able to go back out there. One thing, of course, that a lot of the southern media says, well, they're obviously indicating how bad the beer is if they're throwing cans around. They've been whinging all week about how much the beer prices have gone up, and now they're all throwing them away. And I said, well, they weren't actually throwing them away. They were throwing them in the direction of a referee and the New South Wales players. So
that's true support, isn't it? Did you win that game?
I think we did.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember. It's a bit before my time. Slightly, yeah.
Oh, thanks for the age. Yes, very good, Adam.
But, speaking of the southern media, how good is it seeing New South Wales just turn on each other after one loss? They wanted to get rid of their captain. They want James Tedesco out of the team.
Yes. It's always. It's one of the first things I do after the game. I jump on the Daily Telegraph and see who they're ripping into, because I think we've done it to them so many times in that fashion, where they just sort of somewhat dumbfounded about how did that just happen. So, look, from when we sit on this side of the fence, it's quite enjoyable. Yeah.
Lucky, I'm probably the same. You're disappointed when you lose a game and you think, oh, well, we're going to cop a spray. The disappointment's there, but certainly the way that the media turn on their players, you don't go out there. I don't think I've ever seen anybody play a bad game out there. They mightn't have played their best on the night, they may have been blocked in by the opposition's defence, who denied them the opportunity and the time to be able to create more productive attacking plays. So the credit should go to their opposition for stopping them from doing it. But no, not a lot of the times they used to get a gobful, and I used to say that they were some of our best inspiration because they took away from the chances and the confidence of a New South Wales team that, quite honestly, they didn't play a bum game. They just weren't able to produce their best on the night.
Yeah, well said there. Well, from one leader to the other, from the James Tedesco to Daly Cherry Evans, there was question marks on his leadership when he took over at the Maroons. Not so much now. If he wins in 2 weeks' time at Suncorp Stadium, that's 3 series wins as a captain. Like, he'll be just behind you guys in Cameron Smith. Like,
yeah,
what legacy will he have?
Well, it's a great testament to him about his character, because there was a period there where, you know, the results weren't there and there's question marks. And, like, I went through the same thing before we went on that run, you know, so to go through the adversity and come out the other side and get some rewards for your hard work, look, you know, he's obviously, he's earned that. So it's, you know, I guess when he does decide to retire, you know, he'll look back on this period and know that, you know, it's one of the best times of his career and very special, and he'd be very proud about it. So
yeah,
sure.
And I'm sure we all watched Queensland. We were all celebrating when Queensland won, but you take a look at him, how he was at full time. I mean, he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. It was like it was Christmas Day every day for him. He was jumping up and down. He knew it was a wonderful performance. He knew that his guidance and his leadership from up front was fantastic. It was one of those matches, I think, that he knows that you know, he's produced his best and a performance that's going to get a pat on the back for years, decades to come. Fantastic, it really was, and I'm sure he probably would be the first to admit he was having a bit of a mixed run in the approach to it. But boy, that was a fantastic display by him. And after the game, I think, you know, when we were all in the dressing room, he, you know, I don't think you would have found anybody that had a bigger smile on his face.
Well, I think there was an element of maybe not 100% believing in himself in that role at that level, and I think the 2020 series, I think, was a turning point for him. You know, yeah, under Wayne. You know, once he won that series as captain, I think it was like the monkey was off the back, so to speak, and yeah, so no, he's been very good.
Yeah, it was great. His 3 daughters were there at full time. You saw the great pictures on Nine's Wide World of Sports to help celebrate his 20th game, getting that Dick Tosser-Turner medal. But he is 34. Ben Hunt's 33, I think. In terms of future captain and future halfback, who do you think's ready to go there in the next few years? Oh,
future captain, future halfback.
They love Tom Dearden. He's been in the last 4 camps, so potentially in terms of halves. But then captaincy options, you depends how far it goes. Maybe a Carrigan or Munster might even step up and become a leader.
Yeah, I think all of those names that you've listed, like Dearden, I think is made for Origin. He's just that tough competitor. I think he wouldn't look out of place there in the 7. You know, there's an old sort of saying, you know, you want your most influential players, if they've got leadership you know, capabilities, put them, you know, like Munster, who can, you know, with his own, as we saw the other night, he can change a game on his own. But you can't look past someone like Paddy Carrigan too, who's already been the Wally Lewis medal last year, and he's a great leader of men. So I think it's still a bit of time to go. I don't know what DCE's plans are, but I genuinely think that we've got both captaincy and halfback covered somewhere. Yeah,
and it's a great position to be in, isn't it, to have it. Carrigan, I really have enjoyed watching him lead the Broncos. I think that some of his displays there have been fantastic. His game the other night in the Origin was terrific. I don't think he probably got anywhere near the credit that he deserves, and there were short spaces. But you know, I think they could probably have 2 or 3 guys up for that position, and be interesting to also know what the coach would prefer. Sometimes it's a lot different to people like me, I guess, who don't get to see the full reward.
And with DCE too, he's remained relatively injury-free, so you're not really looking at him thinking he's going to retire in the next year or so?
Yeah, I didn't even realise he was 34 until I saw it there. So he's done remarkably well with his body, and as we've seen across the NRL, like experienced halfbacks are just so hard to come by. So, look, I think he might get through this series. It depends on his body, I suppose. If he's feeling fresh by the start of next year, I'm sure he'll go again.
He loves scoring a try too.
Yeah,
getting a try, and that just to see the celebration on his face. Every match like that is one of the greatest challenge indeed. But to be able to do it, provide leadership, and be able to reward his players and himself, that was something else. It was as though he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and certainly the opportunity to go again, I'm sure, is passing through his mind virtually every day.
And what about Ben Hunt, more so on his club future at the Dragons? Speculation he could be leaving now that Hook has gone from St George Illawarra. Could you potentially see him coming back to Queensland, and maybe Dolphins or Titans should go hard at him?
Well, the Titans just signed Sam Verrills, who's a hooker, because I guess it depends on which position you want to play him.
Yeah.
I obviously like him as a hooker, but he probably prefers to play halfback at club. I hear the Bulldogs are in for him because they're probably looking for an experienced halfback, whereas
because Titans have got Tanner Boyd and Foran.
Yeah, so maybe. Well, the Dolphins have got Milford, who's an experienced half, and Katoa, who looks like he's going to be a 10-year player for him. So
Milford and Hunt back together. 2015 grand final.
Yeah, maybe.
Back to the future for Wayne.
Yeah. Well, I reckon the big fella, I'm sure he's made some inquiries.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. But interesting to hear you say the Bulldogs, Lockie. I reckon he'd fit in really well at the Dogs. He's got some fairly large boys up in front of him that can provide good field position and opportunities. A couple of former Broncos as well that he's had the opportunity to enjoy playing alongside and running off some of their classic passes. So it's a lot of people are predicting the end for him already. I don't think that's anywhere near. I think he's going to be here for a few years to come.
Yeah, and just quickly before we wrap it up, club duties, Cowboys, big win over the Storm. Are they legitimate contender for what you've seen?
I reckon they could go on a bit of a run. That might be.
Tamalolo comes back now too, fresh.
They're your team. What games have they got coming up?
They've got the bye this week, so we'll definitely get 2 points. It's hard looking at the ladder at the moment because some teams, like the Cowboys and Broncos, haven't had a bye, but other teams have had two byes. So
you're making excuses for where they are on the ladder?
So if you take all the byes out, the Cowboys are essentially right on the cusp of the top 8. But I think after the bye, we've got Penrith.
There it is. There's the
Penrith without Nathan Cleary.
Penrith without Nathan Cleary, yeah.
And this is coming, of course, too, Lockie, after dishing out an absolute thrashing of Melbourne Storm. And I'm a big Melbourne Storm fan, and Adam sort of had the head wobble going on.
Mixed emotions, though, because Felty got dropped.
Yeah.
And then they had a big win, so I don't know. It was a bit up and down on that one.
Yeah, well, 45 points against the Storm, that's big. So that'll be... that'll be huge for their confidence. They go into a bye, but then Penrith away or home?
I think it's away. I should get the list.
It'll be interesting, but watching Craig Bellamy during that game, it was something quite extraordinary. I've become used to seeing him blow up a little bit, bellyache, if things aren't going Storm's way during the game. But sort of 2/3 of the way through the match, you could see he was thinking, they're just too good for us on the day. They're ripping us to shreds, tearing us to pieces, and that is as good a performance as I've seen from the Cowboys in a long, long time. They were quite wonderful in that match, and the way that they inspired the fans that turned up that were expecting a very close affair was something quite astounding.
So they've got after the bye, the Panthers in Townsville.
Yep.
And then the Rabbitohs down in Sydney, so that's tough. And then the Tigers from the scars of that 50-point loss a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it is not an easy run coming up, but they're getting a few players back. Nene's back in the team as well, Jason Tamalolo. But I could talk about the Cowboys all afternoon after they had a win. But the Titans, another great start and then fade out. Like, how do you change that as a team? How do you erase being a bad second half side?
I reckon you've got to change up what you do at half time. Like, just try something different so that you're reminding the players we're doing this differently because of, whatever we're doing in the second half is not working. So
give him a spray at half time if he's not doing that.
I don't know.
There's been issues. There's been issues before where teams have come off and haven't gone to the dressing room at half time, and I heard it discussed on the weekend. I thought, when was that? And it was at Lang Park or Suncorp Stadium, the old days of having the jersey sponsor shown up in front of. I think the Broncos did it when they had the powers on, and Forex, of course, were the ground sponsors. Yeah. That's quite some giving up my age there, where it was done. But to be able to come up with something that's a little bit different, I suppose you're always looking for a different way to change the habit of your games.
And it looks as though they'll get AJ Brimson back soon, so that is a positive. But the Broncos couldn't have been more impressive these past 2 weeks, Lockie, during the Origin period. They're a different team this year.
Yeah. Oh, look, I always say if you win away against the Warriors and you beat the Sharks at Shark Park, you're going to have a good year. Yeah. And they were really impressive wins, because they didn't have their Origin players against the Warriors, and they had them back this week. But again, I thought Nico Hines would have been a danger to us because he was probably disappointed with Wednesday and he was going to have a big game. But our defence was outstanding, and we just looked, in control with the footy, just calm, patient, and it was a complete performance. So well done.
Interesting to hear you brought them up, the Sharks. I mean, that haven't been a bogey team for the Broncos, but when Brisbane have played them in Sydney on numerous occasions, the Sharks have got up, and it's been painful to go down there and watch them on TV, and they always seem to be a team that are very difficult to knock over. So for Brisbane to be able to perform well against them is certainly an impressive feature of their play.
And good to see Oatsy back. So Felty gets dropped, Oatsy comes back, Stars. So I can't get it even. One's up and one's down, my boys.
One of Oatsy's runs down the sideline, he
and that kick.
He looks like it needs a good stretch.
Yeah. He was coming back from a knee injury, so hopefully plenty more highlights for Corey Oates and the Broncos to come. Big week coming up before the Queensland and New South Wales teams. A name for State of Origin 2. The only place you can watch it live and free is on Channel 9.